Treasure Coast Hospice is pleased to present Compassionate Care in Healthcare. Compassion is at the core of what we do, so expert knowledge is essential. It's true that some people have more compassion and others have less, but what exactly is it? It's not a personality trait, it's a skill and a part of a process. Our natural tendency related to compassion is often learned early in life, but it is a skill that can be developed and honed. All the parts of the process must be in working order for compassion to occur. If any part of the process gets derailed, our compassion will derail also. No one has an endless supply of compassion. Our goal with this training is to keep compassionate care on track. And sometimes that will be easy. It just happens. And other times it will be much harder, and we will need tools for the trouble spots. I hope to leave you with a better understanding of what compassion is, how it works, and how to bring more of it to your personal and professional lives. Our objectives for this training are to define compassion and its counterpart, compassion fatigue. Learn ways to foster compassionate engagement with others. Identify 4 personality traits that require special handling. And learn ways of avoiding acute and chronic episodes of compassion fatigue. I want to begin with a bold goal: compassionate care to every patient, every time. And maybe even go a step further and commit yourself to living a life of compassion, every person and every situation. These are bold goals that require a deep personal commitment to compassion, and I invite you to make this commitment. Remind yourself often, I'm committed to providing compassionate care, every patient, every time. Practice engaging with compassion every day. Practice makes perfect. Hone your skills. And know that listening to a 1-hour program about compassion and forgetting about it is not going to get you very far. You need to practice, practice, practice. Practice when it's easy and practice when it's hard. Make this commitment. And if you ever need help, if you're struggling, let us help you. We would be glad to offer our guidance and support when you need it. So what is compassion? Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines compassion as sympathetic consciousness of others' distress with a desire to alleviate it. And that definition really doesn't speak to me. So I'm going to use a simple, easy to remember definition. Compassion is being kind, caring, and connected. Compassion is not a personality trait. It's actually a process that requires skills, which involves training or life experiences that have equipped us with the capacity for compassion. Fuel, which is energy and time, that gets discharged and then recharged. The cycle of discharge and recharge must happen daily. When one of these parts of the process is depleted or we fail to adequately recharge, we lose our ability to be kind, caring, and connected. All the parts must be in working order, and we can develop or expand our skill set. Research tells us that treating patients with kindness and compassion is healing. It reduces pain, anxiety, blood pressure, leads to faster healing of wounds, shorter hospital stays, more receptivity to providing medical information, and more compliance with prescribed medical treatments. Research suggests that cultivating compassion may immunize the practitioner from negative emotions and compassion fatigue. Exercising compassion has been found to increase vagal tone, the overall strength and stability of the central nervous system, an essential component of health and well-being. Like muscle tone, vagal tone can be strengthened. A 2009 study found people who trained in compassion meditation had much lower levels of inflammation. Lower inflammation is linked to better health and well-being. So it's good for us too. A kind work environment fosters compassionate engagement, creates less exhaustion, delivers more satisfied patients, and decreases absenteeism. Kind healthcare workers are resilient to stress, experience work as meaningful, have less burnout or compassion fatigue, and greater well-being and commitment. Consider a typical workday as a movement between two ends on a spectrum from kind, caring, and connected to stressed and cut off. When we are stressed, stress hormones course through the body. When we are kind, we are bathed in oxytocin and nitric oxide. Stress increases blood pressure, and when we are kind, blood pressure goes down. Stress weakens the immune system, and kindness bolsters it. Stress speeds up aging, and kindness slows down aging. Kindness heals others and ourselves. Now let's take a closer look at making the kind and caring connection. It's a fact, we will naturally connect with some patients, while others it may take more work. We are human beings and this is human nature. Sometimes we will connect and sometimes we will not. Generally speaking, a connection is more likely to naturally occur with people who are similar to ourselves. We will naturally be kind, caring, and connected with these patients. No extra skills or training are needed here. But in those cases when a connection does not develop naturally, our threat detection and response system gets triggered. It's not only human nature to move away from these situations, but the impact on your ability to think, concentrate, and perform well is significantly diminished. So it's important to recognize these situations, know how to dampen down the threat response system, and learn ways to engage with people we don't naturally connect with. It's key to note here that there's not an actual threat to your physical safety in these patient encounters. And if we're going to be successful at being kind, caring, and connected, every patient, every time, we're going to have to, one, recognize and override our instincts here. So notice when you are not connecting. Without judgment, without criticism, just notice that you're failing to have a connection with a person. And then we start looking for ways to make the connection, to respond or maybe even transform what is happening. Responses involve choice and goal-directed behavior. Here we use focus and attention to complete a task or pursue a goal, like being compassionate. When we need to respond because we're not naturally connecting with someone, we need to slow down and make a special effort to be kind, caring, and connected. With sustained effort and repetition, we can learn how to navigate situations like this more compassionately. We can feel safe in a wider range of settings and find more commonality with people who were once not like me. We must stay highly conscious, aware of what we are feeling and what we intend to accomplish. Think about learning your trade or studying information. At first it was foreign and unknown, but with effort and practice, there's more comfort and mastery. At the most basic level, it comes from our deep commitment to provide compassionate care to every patient, every time. Transformation is about creating the space for something so new we can't conceive what that is. Something greater than a skilled response, a total transformation. It's rooted in observation, awareness, and reflection. The acts of perceiving, feeling, or being conscious of events, objects, or sensory patterns. When we observe with kindness, we cultivate growth and learning. If we observe with criticism, we trigger stress and reactivity. Transformation comes from the space of pure potentiality. We don't know what will happen. We are making space for something so new it can't be conceived. Have you ever been transformed by the love or kindness of another person? Yes, we've all had transformative experiences, even though they are typically rare. But when we can deliver this to our patients and families, when we are not only able to respond skillfully, but transform a difficult situation, we have reached the pinnacle of our work. It's qualitatively different than responding and difficult to put into words, but it can happen. To transform a situation, we generally need to move slower, stay open, stay flexible, and think outside the box. Make room for something greater than we could ever conceive to appear. Okay, so let's just take a moment and practice these ideas. I want you to start by checking in with yourself. Are you feeling kind, caring, connected right now? Just check in. And notice how it feels to stop and check in with yourself. Here we're checking in on the connection with information. It's not the same, but we can extrapolate that to a human encounter. Are you connected with the information right now? Notice how this brief moment of reflection ignites a connection, helps us connect. Pausing to check in, becoming aware of your state is a powerful tool for staying connected. So just for a moment, in the beginning, middle, or end of each patient visit, pause to check in and ask, am I connecting? Just like we did right here. And if you're not, then try some of these ideas for fostering compassionate engagement. Start with the intention to always be kind, caring, and connected. Every patient, every time. There's strong scientific evidence that routinely focusing on a desired trait creates change. A 2013 study from the University of Wisconsin showed that refocusing daily on the intention to be loving and compassionate not only strengthened feelings of compassion, but also increased altruistic behaviors in subjects. Change comes from doing more of what is wanted, not less of something unwanted. And frequently reminding yourself to be kind, caring, and connected is essential. Studies on mental rehearsal tell us regular, sustained focus and practice is essential. When you find yourself in a situation where compassion is not occurring naturally, try the stop technique. This is a mindfulness and emotional regulation tool that can help you refocus and recenter. Use this anytime you feel stressed, anxious, or you're not connecting with someone. Stop. Stop what you're doing and take several deep breaths. Stay with the breaths long enough to get centered in your body and calm down a little bit. This might take a moment or it may be a little longer. Next, just observe what you're feeling. Be aware without judgment or criticism, just awareness. If you can, also try to observe what the other person is feeling. Again, without judgment or criticism, just awareness. And finally, proceed. Get back to the task at hand, but proceed with gentle kindness. Stop. This is a quick technique to recenter and refocus on kind, caring, and connected. Next, take good care of yourself. You cannot care for others if you don't take good care of yourself. Eating, sleeping, and physical activity are essential for your health and well-being. Always make time for you. Treating your patients with compassion is important, and the same is also true for you. Taking good care of yourself requires self-compassion, being aware and responding kindly when you are hurting or struggling. The work we do is hard, and we struggle too. Self-compassion is being as kind to ourselves as we are to our patients. Take a moment and think about, what do you typically do when you are struggling? Let's say struggling to connect with a patient. What do you typically do in these situations? Are you gentle and kind with yourself? That's self-compassion. Being kind, caring, and connected with yourself. Starting with yourself is one of the core themes in this presentation. We always start here with ourselves. So when you are having a hard time connecting, don't be hard on yourself. Say something like, well, I'm doing the best I can here, or I've got some tools, I'm going to have to use them. And you can do that. Be kind, caring, and connected with yourself in these situations. When you are kind, caring, and connected with yourself, you will be more likely to respond to the patient this way. Self-compassion is a win-win. All efforts made to calm yourself and the patient will be helpful. And while there are other things you might do that, although would be understandable, they might not be helpful. So be kind, caring, and connected with yourself. For more information on self-compassion, go to selfcompassion.org. Regularly and often, check your emotional state and the state of others, and choose your emotional state with focus and attention. How often do we focus on what others should be doing differently? But when you can, stop, take several deep breaths, bring your attention back to yourself, and proceed with gentle kindness. Always choose compassion. Additional behaviors that open up space for compassion include give your full attention. This may be the technique that I use the most and it works the most for me. And it really just has helped me be kind, caring, connected with someone when I avoid all distractions. I'm in the room and I'm in the conversation with this person. And then that is the tool that helps me the most to provide compassion is when I'm deeply, deeply present with someone. Next, you can shift your focus to the bigger picture of end-of-life care, right? This person is facing life's most difficult challenge. That in itself is justification for us to feel compassion and provide compassion. Don't promote conflict in any area of your life. Remember, conflict is the opposite of compassion. So we don't want to have pockets of where it's okay to be conflictual and where it's not. We want to avoid promoting conflict in any area of our lives. Next is to practice mindfulness. And mindfulness is defined as paying attention in the present moment without judgment. And so again, just bringing together this being very, very present here in this moment and shifting our attention away from judgment. So practice mindfulness, paying attention in the present moment without judgment. Try to accept others as they are. Avoid judging them. Search for similarities, not differences. Our brains are hardwired to search out. We just default to noticing and focusing on our differences. But if you search, you will find that we have so many similarities with people, and that will help us be kind, caring, and connected. Give compliments. Say thank you. Validate. Acknowledge your own successes. Like when you have a really compassionate engagement, really pat yourself on the back and acknowledge that. And explore failures. We all have them as learning opportunities so that we might do better next time. Seek out role models. Research tells us the best way to learn a new skill is to observe it in others. Mirror neurons are brain cells that allow us to understand others and help us learn new behaviors. Mirror neurons fire when we perform an action and when we see others performing a behavior. We are learning from other people all the time by simply observing them. You don't need to try, it just happens, but you can try, and when you do try, it can speed up learning a desired trait. Mirror neurons are believed to be at the core of compassion. When we experience an emotion and when we see others experiencing an emotion, mirror neurons help us connect by imitating the posture, mannerisms, and facial expressions of the other person, even when we're not aware that we're doing this. Choosing to observe role models is a powerful way to learn new skills, and you can intensify the learning by focusing intently on the role model and imagining yourself doing what they do. Do you know someone who exemplifies great compassion? We have so many wonderful role models here at Treasure Coast Hospice. So observe them, model them, and imitate them. Be adaptable. Solve problems in new ways. Don't repeat what doesn't work. Stand back and be open for new solutions. Stop struggling at the level of the problem. The answer for compassion never lies here. And work on your own problems, not the problems of others. Avoid behaviors that impede compassion, like blaming, complaining, judgment, criticism, and cynicism. These are red flags that our differences are being placed in opposition. They are fodder to conflict, not compassion. So make a deep personal commitment to not feed the problem. And I'm not suggesting that you be a doormat. Instead, respond, ask for what is needed, explore the next step, and get agreement. Doing this has the potential to get things back on track. Blaming, complaining, judgment, criticism, and cynicism are natural but not skillful responses. So next I'd like to talk about 4 personality traits that require special handling. First is severely distressed patients. Patients who exhibit anger, hostility, blaming, and complaining. We must carefully navigate these situations to avoid conflict, which is the opposite of compassion. Conflict occurs when different points of view are placed in opposition of each other. Different points of view are unavoidable. People have different training, different experiences, and different personalities, and so this leads people to see things differently. So differences are unavoidable. Our work is not to eliminate differences, but instead manage them. And we can do that by not pitting our differences or different points of view against each other. And 2 ways to do that are to use Hugh bars and get agreement on the next step. Hugh bars is an acronym for the 6 basic human needs that we all have and our patients all have, and that is to feel heard, understood, given the benefit of the doubt, appreciated. We all want to be right, we all think we're right, and we all need to be safe. When differences are present and the stage is set for conflict, try Hugh bars. Slow down and give special attention to hearing the person's point of view. Try very hard to understand it rather than change or dismiss it. This person may be afraid, misinformed, or unable to understand, but is likely to respond positively to your efforts to hear and understand their point of view. Next, give this person the benefit of the doubt. Try to show appreciation and respect. Everyone likes to feel valued, you, me, and our patients. Next, try to find something the person is right about. Everybody thinks they're right. Not everyone is right all the time, and often people are right about something, but not everything. So do your best to find something that this person is right about. It'll help you connect with them. And finally, do whatever you can do to make this person feel safe. I'm going to take care of that. You are in safe hands. Help this person feel safe. Next are narcissistic personality traits. When someone exhibits exaggerated self-importance, very self-centered or egocentric behavior, try to lead with admiration and respect, and try really hard to avoid anything that could be perceived as a confrontation. Try to present your ideas from the standpoint of how it will benefit this person. Borderline personality traits include people who are extremely impulsive. They're explosive. They sometimes overstep our boundaries, have severe mood swings, and often a history of unstable interpersonal relationships. In these cases, try to lead with kindness while maintaining firm boundaries. Neither of these will work alone. You must do both, kindness and firm boundaries. As an example, you might say, "Oh, I'm so glad to see you today. Let's catch up. But I only have 10 minutes and then I need to go and dispense medicine. So I'll have to go then." Try to avoid triangulated relationships, and this may be one of my greatest struggles. So, in a stable interpersonal relationship, two people exist side by side. But when the relationship is knocked off course and these two parties don't agree about something, the relationship becomes destabilized. And when this happens, there's a natural tendency to draw in a third person to take sides. And this happens all the time in our professional and personal lives. It's natural, but it doesn't help to solve the problem. So we want to try to avoid taking sides and present our point of view based on knowledge and expertise. If we take sides, the odd man out will either back down in submission or escalate the fight, and neither one of these is desired. What we want to do is educate, inform, without taking sides. It's a skill, it's an art, it will require some practice. As we close our discussion on compassionate care in healthcare, let's review. Compassion is defined as being kind, caring, and connected. It's a process, not a personality trait. We can foster compassionate engagement with others by making a deep personal commitment to be kind, caring, and connected every patient, every visit. Responding and transforming failed connections, stopping and refocusing on kind, caring, and connected often, and using very specific skills in highly distressed, narcissistic, borderline, or triangulated situations. And use Hugh bars and get agreement on the next step. Finally, be sure to take good care of yourself, practice self-compassion, and maintain a stable system of refuel and discharge. So now let's take some time to apply these ideas to real-life cases. Think about a time when you were really, really kind and caring, or a time when someone recognized and praised you for your effort. I'm going to give you a minute to let a case come to mind, something that really was exemplary. As a bereavement counselor, I hear stories like this all the time. Juliet has an uncanny ability to show up at just the right time. I think about the time Amy arrived in the middle of a crisis and told the family, "I've got this, don't worry," and how those words gave the family so much comfort. How many times do our staff rush in when needed and find a way to stay as long as needed? And remember Ed and the 24-hour shift, moving the patient to safety, caring for small children and pets, and dealing with the police. What would you say helps us make these connections? Well, it takes teamwork for sure. It helps when a person is similar to you, or when their views and expectations match what we do really well. Experience and training really help too. Now, I'd like for you to think of a time when the connection didn't go as you would have liked. But before you go there, remember to practice self-compassion. We are not here to criticize or condemn. We are here to learn, grow, and avoid repeating bad experiences. There's no judgment, so I just want you to let it come to mind a time when you just didn't feel a good connection with a patient or a family. I'm going to give you a minute to let something come to mind. And remember, self-compassion. Is there anything in today's presentation that might have helped you in that situation? Were you able to stay focused on the goal? Did you respond rather than react? Did you avoid those unproductive behaviors of blaming or complaining? Were there any special traits that suggested admiration or boundaries might have helped? Have you ever gotten drawn into a fight between family members? Sometimes, despite our best efforts, things go wrong, and we can learn from these experiences. For me, when I did this reflection, um, every time it seemed to me that there was a failure in the process, that I didn't have the right skill, or my fuel, my time, and energy were low. And there have been times when I was not present, distracted, and didn't use my tools. So now I want you to think about the last severely distressed family that you worked with. I'm going to give you a minute. Hopefully you can come up with something that's in just the recent past. A family that was really distressed and exhibited some of those behaviors of being angry or blaming or complaining. I'm going to give you a minute to think. And as you reflect on that experience, do you think careful attention to cue bars and getting agreement on the next step could have helped? I hope the information presented today will be helpful to you. And next we will take a look at how to handle the challenge of this work that demands so much of us in terms of compassion. A discussion on compassion would not be complete without talking about the topic of compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue is defined as exhaustion in the helping profession, characterized by irritability and withdrawal. We talked about how compassion is not a personality trait and no one has an endless supply of it, that it's a process with 4 components. That includes skill, which includes training or life experiences that have equipped us with the capacity for compassion. Fuel, which is energy and time that gets discharged and then recharged. The cycle of discharge and recharge must happen daily. And when one of these resources gets depleted or not adequately recharged, we experience compassion fatigue. Exhaustion in the helping professions, characterized by irritability and withdrawal. Compassion fatigue is understood to occur in stages. First is the zealot. The most at risk of developing compassion fatigue are often the first ones to answer the call for help. But when the challenge is unrelenting, fatigue and irritability set in. Imperfections in oneself and others become more pronounced. Often what we see here is blaming and complaining, and this is completely natural, but does little to resolve the problem, and we don't want to stay here to continue down this path. So if a workable solution fails to materialize, then we begin to withdraw. And there's a loss of energy and a feeling of defeat envelops us. We now see the world through a very dark filter. And if this goes unresolved or unchecked, we can become totally disconnected. And certainly not what we want. It doesn't match why we're here, and no one wants to be here. So there is absolutely no shame in the process, and it can happen to anyone. But we want to avoid this downward spiral sooner than later and turn things around and get them moving in a positive direction. So how do we do that? So the first defense you have against compassion fatigue is to avoid it or minimize it. Maintain a stable system of refuel and discharge. Make a deep personal commitment to compassionately care for yourself and others. Recognize when you're experiencing compassion fatigue sooner than later. There's a failure in equipment or refueling. See this as a signal to begin self-care and self-compassion. A key point is to lead with kindness. Why? Because it's a stress response, and more stress won't help. When you see it in yourself and others, lead with kindness. For example, say to yourself, "It's all right, I'm having a hard time right now." To another person, you might say, Tell me what you're going through, and try to listen intently. Next, refuel. Take a break. Get ample food and rest. Taking a break sooner than later can help to de-escalate the situation. Have you ever come back from a draining experience after ample rest and sleep with new vigor? Yes, this can really help. The sooner you can take a break and recharge, the better you will be. Next, examine your expectations of yourself and others and adjust whenever possible. Is there anything you can do that you can just let go? Letting go is a powerful coping technique. Try to get 30 minutes of physical activity each day. Physical activity promotes BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It's fertilizer for thinking and performance. Outside physical activity is a bonus for the increased production of BDNF. Avoid repeating unproductive behaviors such as blaming, complaining, and venting. See these as symptoms of compassion fatigue and don't feed the problem. Instead, let others know what they can do to help. So that's a plan for compassion fatigue. Recognize it sooner than later. Lead with kindness. Take a break. Adjust your expectations when you can. Try to get daily exercise and avoid unproductive behaviors. Not easy, but it's doable. Often a quick reset is all that is needed, but if exhaustion and irritability persist, we need to go deeper. When exhaustion and irritability persist, take time to reflect. This is a simple yet powerful technique to help us evolve into the providers we want to be. Kind, caring, and connected. When we are not, it's human. But when difficulties persist, we need to look deeper. Think back to the beginning. Remember like me, not like me? Well, that's a perception, a really fast one. Faster than our thinking minds often perceive, and it sets off a reaction. So take time to reflect on your likes and dislikes about people. Without judgment, just be curious. Reflecting on this helps us step up the ladder, bringing our perceptions into light where we can choose something different. We can respond in these situations. So down the road, I'd like for you to reflect on what you like and don't like about patients, coworkers, and family members. But these are intense relationships and not the best place to start. So start with something easier. The clerk at the store, people on the street, a distant friend or relative, and then work your way to these important relationships. With kindness, with reflection, without judgment, we can discover what fuels our unwanted reactions so we can better respond when needed. Learn what drives your like me, not like me. We all have it. It's not wrong, but generally we don't know what it is. So be curious about differences. Choose to validate and allow differences. You are allowed to not like traits and behaviors in other people. But if you've made the deep personal commitment, you want to respond compassionately. Responding rather than reacting will help you. Letting not like me play out below your awareness will not help. So a key question to ask when irritability and exhaustion persist is, am I reacting or responding? Am I taking time to think things through? Am I choosing a deliberate course of action? Not all reactions are bad. When our skills and energy level are a good match, reacting works. But when things are not working, it may help to respond rather than react. Reactions are derived from our threat detection and response system and past learning. They will save a life, but when our training and fuel level are not a good match for the situation, they may not work. So we need to try something different by trying to respond rather than react. Responses operate slower than reactions, so we'll help to go slow and slow things down a bit. What are some ways we might respond rather than react in a difficult situation? Well, take a break if you can. Take problems one step at a time. If you're working with someone, try to get agreement on the next step. Connect with the bigger picture, for example, your commitment to provide compassionate care to all. These are examples of responding. It's important to note that our patients are in reaction mode and they can't help it. When we are able to respond rather than react, we can help steer the ship to a positive outcome. Now think about some ways that you might react in an undesirable way. Anger, hostility, unkindness. These are natural reactions in a difficult situation. When you can, let these be a signal to respond. Next, ask yourself, what is my greatest obstacle? Sometimes getting clear on this can really help. And if you can affect change, do it. Let others know what you need. And if you're unable to change the situation, then you must acknowledge there are some things we simply cannot change. Getting clear on your greatest challenge can help you set a course of needed action, and this is a great alternative to blaming or complaining. Finally, ask yourself, what restores me and keeps me going? Keep this front and center. Connect with it often. Maybe it's the people you love or your dedication to the work that you love. Maybe it's an inspirational quote or a role model. It really helps to stay connected with what inspires, restores, and guides you in turbulent times. As we come to a close today, I'd like to share this quote from Leo Buscaglia, who says, "Too often we underestimate the power of a touch, a smile, a kind word, a listening ear, an honest compliment, or the smallest act of caring, all of which have the potential to turn a life around." If you'd like more information about what has been discussed today, here are some additional resources. First is Karen Armstrong's book, 12 Steps to a Compassionate Life, and her website, charterforcompassion.org. There's also C-Care at Stanford University, where they do research on the topic of compassion and altruism. And then finally, Kristen Neff's website, selfcompassion.org. Thank you so much for listening today.